Hey everyone, my name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
I grew up in the FLDS community, which is the polygamous group that follows Warren Jeffs. I moved out of that community when I was 18 years old.
Yes, and today we are going to talk about the 5 similarities and 5 differences between the FLDS and the LDS.
Yeah, a lot of people have questions about that. Like, hey, how similar or how different are these two religions? Because a lot of people know that there are some similarities, so we want to talk about that.
Yes, and I grew up LDS.
Mm-hmm.
And Sam also was baptized LDS about a year after leaving the FLDS.
Yeah, so we're both very active in the LDS church for quite some time.
Yes, so we're very familiar with both, and we just kind of want to share and highlight a little bit of, the similarities and differences that we get asked about a lot.
Yeah.
And also, if you want to hear more stories about what it was like for Sam to grow up in polygamy, then please like and subscribe, and you'll be able to see lots more videos about what it was like for him out there.
Yeah.
So, we are going to start off with similarities between the FLDS, polygamous group, and the LDS, mainstream. A lot of people have heard it referred to as Mormons, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the FLDS stands for the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yep.
So they're similar, but a lot of times you'll hear LDS, Latter-day Saints, and FLDS, Fundamentalist Latter-day Saints. So that's what those two acronyms are, because we'll use those terms a lot when we're referring to the two different ones, and we don't want to confuse people. If you've never heard of either, that's what they are.
Yep. Yeah, and just a quick fun fact, the FLDS members never, that I know of, that I saw personally, never referred to themselves as Mormons. So the what people know as the Mormon church that has nothing to do with the FLDS, that's the LDS church.
Yes, a lot of times they'll think that they don't consider themselves Mormons, and neither do LDS people as well. You'll probably recognize that people that are from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints call themselves LDS. It's not a term they actually use for themselves.
Right.
So,
just kind of a nickname that, and we'll get into why. So.
Yeah, but there's a little background on that. So the first similarity between the two religions is their belief that Joseph Smith, if some people may or may not have heard of Joseph Smith, but that Joseph Smith restored the Church of Jesus Christ here on this earth.
Yep. They both believe that. I was raised my whole life being taught that Joseph Smith received a vision from the heavens, and God spoke to him, and Jesus Christ spoke to him, and through that revelation and that visitation, he was able to restore Christ's earth on the earth once again.
Christ's church.
Christ's church. What did I say?
Christ's earth.
Okay,
I think it's
sure.
Okay. Anyway, but yes, and that is exactly what
Church,
I was taught as well in the LDS religion. So that is one of the fundamental things. I think we'd mentioned in other videos where the FLDS they split off from the mainstream LDS at one point, but their history and their roots and their belief in Joseph Smith as a prophet and seer and revelator are both the exact same.
Yep.
So that is the first main similarity.
Yeah, and they continue to believe in the couple prophets that follow after that. They believe in and follow the teachings of Brigham Young and also John Taylor.
Yeah.
So it's not just Joseph Smith, it's the first 3 prophets of the church that they believe in as well, that the FLDS believe in as well.
Yeah, and that leads us into number 2, which is believing in modern day prophets and modern day revelation.
Yep.
So with Joseph Smith receiving keys from heaven and priesthood, which another word for priesthood, the power of God here on earth, and restoring the Church of Jesus Christ meant that now there were going to be apostles and prophets the same way that there were in the olden days in the Bible and with Jesus Christ. So with that being, that's the same in both, and we have a history of the same between the LDS and the FLDS, like Sam just really said. They have the same beginning prophets before they split, and that split actually came from a non-belief in the current prophet in the mainstream LDS. The FLDS, there was a group of people that said no.
We believe differently now, so a group of people split off and followed a different prophet at that point.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the FLDS church, and they call themselves the FLDS, F being the fundamentalists, because they believe that they stuck to the true and the true teachings and how the church was originally established through Joseph Smith.
And that split happened primarily because of the practice of polygamy, which we'll get into that as a difference later. But both churches in the history both had polygamy in them, and then when the mainstream LDS church stopped the practice of polygamy, and their prophet had a revelation that it was to be no longer practiced within the religion, that is when the FLDS split and said, no, we don't believe that revelation came from God. We believe that God does want us to continue to practice polygamy. Mm-hmm. And their prophet said, yes, we are meant to still practice it.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So, and so obviously today, the FLDS still believe in Warren Jeffs as their prophet, and the LDS believe in their prophet today, which is President Nelson. So.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in the differences in a second too.
Yep.
Okay. So third thing would be that's a similarity between the two is belief in the Book of Mormon as another testament of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so basically they both believe, and I was raised this way, Melissa was raised this way, that the Book of Mormon, the Book of Mormon is actually a scripture that they read that was given to Joseph Smith, as you can read in the church history, and through, once again, heavenly visitations, and he was able to translate, there's the word, and he was able to translate it into English. So they believe that it is like the Bible, another testament of Jesus Christ, and that it's scripture.
Yes, and that it's when Jesus Christ, after he was resurrected and visited people, obviously in the Bible, then they believe that it's another testament of his visitation to the people in the Americas.
Yep.
So that's a really quick, short version, but
yes.
Both religions believe that Joseph Smith received plates that he was able to translate the Book of Mormon into English from those hidden plates.
Yeah.
So that is another big similarity.
Yes. So that's a very summarized version of that, but they both, FLDS and LDS, read the Book of Mormon on a regular basis, and also the King James Version of the Bible. So they read those together as scripture.
Yeah, they
both of them.
Yeah, they both believe that they're complementary to one another.
Mm-hmm.
We've had people ask, or I know I've had people just ask in my life, like, oh, so do you just believe the Book of Mormon, and do you just leave out the Bible? And that's not the case. They study and believe in both. So both religions do.
Yep.
Number 4 would be eternal progression, meaning that like this life is a stepping stone.
That's something that my mother is very passionate about, and so all of the trials and difficulties that they're going through in the FLDS religion, and the stuff that Warren Jeffs has put them through, in her eyes, it is just a very, very small stepping stone, a very small blip in all of eternity that she just has to endure. And that if she proves herself worthy, and that she's going to be obedient to what she considers God's teachings, then she will be blessed throughout the eternities, and that she'll be able to be with her family.
Yeah, and that is number 5,
okay,
which is eternal families. So when you get married in both religions, both of them believe in eternal marriage, and they call it sealing,
mm-hmm.
which is not just for this time. So at the end of most marriage ceremonies, they say until death do you part. But in the LDS and the FLDS religion, they don't say that at the end of marriage ceremonies. It is for time and for eternity.
Yep.
So eternal families is a huge thing in both religions. That you can be with your family forever, which is pretty beautiful.
Yeah, it's a fantastic thought and teaching. That if you follow the commandments and you follow the teachings of the modern day prophets, they both believe that you will be able to be with your family forever. And a lot of people, obviously, who wouldn't want that. So it's
all of us want that.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so it's just it's a beautiful teaching, beautiful thought, and that's what they both believe. And I would say that's one of the reasons that many people are interested in learning more about the religion, because they say, wait a minute, I get to be with my family forever? I want to hear more about this. So it's kind of, they both say that they center everything around the family. Obviously, in the FLDS church, it's not. Because of the way things have gone down, you can tell that's not really the way that Warren Jeffs has been running things. He doesn't
been treating it.
He doesn't really put much care or attention in keeping families together. But
which is
but that's the FLDS.
Yeah, that's the FLDS that do that. The LDS are very much centered on families. Families are forever, and family is everything. So that's the way I was raised. So now to the differences. So that was our top 5 similarities. Just to go over them again real quick is, belief that Joseph Smith restored the Church of Jesus Christ, the belief in the Book of Mormon and the Bible together, the modern day prophets, and modern day revelation, meaning that they believe that God actually speaks to our prophets and apostles, and that's what they're conveying is from God himself. Eternal progression and eternal families. So those 5 things. And then obviously there's huge differences, like huge differences. So we had to make sure we touch on those as well. So the number 1 difference I would say is who the prophet is, which we kind of already touched a little bit on. The fact. Go ahead.
No, yeah, you're fine. So they both believe today that there is one true prophet on the earth, and that prophet is speaking directly to God and then conveying God's message and God's teachings to the people here on earth. So basically a direct line from God to his people here on the earth. And they both believe that. The FLDS believe that it's Warren Jeffs. And they still do, even though he's in prison, they still believe that he's talking with God. And so...
And the LDS prophet is Russell M. Nelson.
Yep.
So they both still... the difference is who they believe. And like we kind of touched a little bit in the history, that was kind of the main difference that originally split off the 2 religions to begin with, was belief in who the prophet was supposed to be. So the mainstream LDS, it went down the line, and the FLDS said, no, we don't believe that this person's the prophet anymore. We believe that so-and-so is the prophet, and that's what split it. And then they continued to follow their own line of prophets from there. So that's the first one, huge one, obviously. Because if that person is speaking for God, all the other rules and ways that the churches are run and the organization is run and the way that the gospel is interpreted, all of those type of things obviously rely hugely on the prophet.
If you believe that someone is talking directly from and for God, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you listen to that? I mean, so if that's what you believe, it's very important who
that person is.
Who that person is, yes. So anyway, big one.
Big one. Number 2 is polygamy, obviously. So the mainstream LDS Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, does not practice polygamy at all anymore for a very long time. It stopped in the late 1800s. Obviously, there was some lingering because they didn't split up families that were already polygamous families. They didn't say, oh, now we're stopping polygamy, so get rid of your extra wives, obviously, right? So it did linger for a little bit into the 1900s, but it was not church approved. And it hasn't been for over 100 years. And obviously...
It wasn't church approved to continue to marry.
To continue.
But for those that already had multiple wives, that was church approved that they continue that until they died. So they were able to keep their wives.
But no more new plural marriages in the LDS Church for a very, 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 very long time.
Many years.
Many years. And all of those years, the FLDS
they continue. to do that. Yes. So if anyone the polygamous church, or sometimes they were referred to as polygamous Mormons or just Mormons, but the ones that practice polygamy, that's only the FLDS. There are some other groups as well that believe and do practice polygamy, but anyway, it's the FLDS does, but the LDS Church does not.
And a lot of the other polygamous groups, or like sister wives, a lot of people think that those are all all these different polygamous people or groups, that they're all Mormons. Well, none of them can actually be practicing members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They can be mainstream LDS because it is not allowed to practice polygamy and be a member of the LDS Church. So it's just not a thing. They may still have some of those same core beliefs and then have kind of offshot into their own groups, or there's other groups. I know there's a Kingston group. There's the
All Red
group. There's multiple polygamous groups that have shot off from the mainstream LDS. But if someone is practicing polygamy, they are not a member of the LDS Church.
True.
Currently.
Yep.
So that's a huge thing. Third
Another
main difference would be the whole arranged marriage thing, okay?
Yeah. So obviously in the LDS, mainstream LDS church, arranged marriage is not a thing.
No.
People are, in fact, we were both members of the LDS church when we got married, and we chose each other. This wasn't arranged.
No, it was not arranged.
Which, anyway, but in the FLDS church, that is very much a thing. And to date, right now in this moment, they're not actually, no one's getting married. Warren put a halt to all of that. But when I was out there, and not too long ago, everyone that got married, it was all arranged. Everyone that got married in the FLDS church were in a lot of cases were brought together as husband and wife after just getting to know each other for a couple of days. So it was very much arranged, and they had no idea what was coming until the prophet of the church called them and said, "Okay, this is who you're going to marry, and live happily ever after."
And there's no dating beforehand in the FLDS either.
Right.
Which is very different. So the LDS, you can date. They do suggest that you wait until you're 16 years old to start dating. So that was something that was like very, very common, is to wait till you're 16.
Mm-hmm.
But dating is like very much encouraged. And heck, there's even like singles wards. So once you turn 18, from 18 until almost till you're 30, is it 29? It's somewhere in there. It's somewhere close. I think once you're 30, then you have to go to a different ward. But there's young single adult wards, which is congregations completely made up of young single adults. And
to encourage people
to meet and to date and to find their spouses. So it's really awesome. And we actually met in a young single adults ward.
It's true. We did.
Or re-met, I guess.
Yeah.
Watch that video for that. But we re-met at church at a young single adults ward.
Yes.
So
so
totally different.
The LDS church is very much catered towards families and building families and all of that. So obviously marriages were not arranged. Everyone was encouraged to date
and find the person that they love.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Number 4 would be a huge difference also is in temples. So I'm sure a lot of people have seen pictures of the gorgeous LDS temples. They are beautiful. For the LDS, they're very sacred, very pure place where you can go and receive personal revelation from God. And the FLDS only had, well, I guess I should finish the LDS part, but the LDS people, it is a goal to be able to be worthy, to be able to go into the temple and to be able to make and keep sacred covenants that you make in the walls of the temple. Okay, so it's a goal for every member to end up going into the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And the FLDS.
Yeah, well, and just to add to that, the LDS, there's a lot of temples too. They have a lot of temples.
Like
They're
over 150.
All over throughout the world.
The whole world.
So anyway, the FLDS church, they didn't. When I was growing up, I was never taught about the importance of temples. So I heard about, and they talked about in some of the church history, some of the temples that were built in the early years of the church, but they never talked about the importance of them necessarily. And now, as I got a little older in my teens, that's when Warren Jeffs started bringing people together from the community and sending them to Texas to that compound where he had them build a temple. So that was the first and only temple that the FLDS church ever built and did anything in. I don't know too much of details on what they considered it sacred too, but I hear rumors that what was going on in there was not appropriate. But I don't know all the details. I never went to that temple. I never saw it. I've never been inside of it. I only know from my family and friends of what things they said. So.
Yeah, but it was also like very like selective people, wasn't it? Like their goal wasn't to have all of their members be able to go to the temple the way it is for the LDS.
Right, and in fact, it was just those that were, I guess, worthy enough. So for me, for example, I felt like I was doing something wrong because I was never invited to go, and so it was very. It was very interesting, and it was almost secretive, and so it was very different. And as many of you know, that temple is no longer being used. It's just kind of abandoned at this point, as far as I know.
Yeah, so that's a huge, huge difference.
Yeah.
And then the last main difference is probably just the way that the LDS Church has continued to stay modern and more, I don't know if relevant's the right word, but I mean, they've got Twitter, they've got Facebook, they have the internet, they have websites, they have access to all sorts of media. They have like tried to stay a lot with the times.
Right.
Where the FLDS
Not so much.
Not
yes.
so much.
I mean, obviously, as you can see, the way they dress, which they consider that a very important thing because it's a thing of modesty for them, and they believe it's important to be dressed that way. So, but yes, you can see the way that they dress, and it's just very different. It's, it looks like something that someone would have worn how many years ago?
Little House on the Prairie,
yes,
1800s.
1800s, way back when. And anyway, they do, however, have technology. We weren't allowed to have TV and internet in the home, but for businesses, they did have internet out there, and they all have nice vehicles. And anyway, so it's not that they don't have any of the technology, they just aren't really changing with the times in certain aspects.
Yeah, I would say they more like feared evil influences in technology, where the LDS Church focused on trying to use modern technology for good.
Right.
Does that make sense? So they're not scared of it. They're trying to use it for good. And the FLDS were more scared of modern technology and the evil things that could come.
They assume, well, and now I believe that a lot of it is they didn't want too much of the outside world to be known for those that lived inside, because if you learn more, then maybe more people would move out. But anyway, so they didn't want people to have access to some of those things just for the information that's out there.
Yeah.
And they would of course blame it on, it's just full of wicked stuff. Yeah, and that's why they didn't want us to have it.
Yeah. So that is our 5 main differences, real quick, just going through who the current prophet is. Obviously polygamy, marriages, arranged marriages, and lack of dating, temples, and 5 would be keeping up with modern times and modern technology and using technology for good instead of out of fear.
And obviously there's a lot more similarities and a lot more differences that we could get into as well, but these are some of the main ones that if someone says, I wonder if this is the same church or what is kind of the difference here. Those are kind of the main ones.
Yeah, hopefully you learned something about either the similarities or the differences. And obviously, as always, please leave comments and questions in the description, in the comment section.
In the comments, yes. Thank you so much for all those comments and questions, and we really appreciate all of you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, and please like and subscribe if you want to hear more about what it was like for Sam growing up in polygamy, or more videos like this.
Yes.
This is based on everybody's questions. So
thank you.
Thank you all, and we will talk to y'all soon.
We'll talk to you soon.